Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your appearance today. General Brown, as Congress considers this year's budget request in the Department of Defense's top-line budget, pardon me, it has become increasingly clear that the services cannot rely on budget increases to acquire the capabilities the nation will require in the future unless Congress takes action to change the President's budget. If not, though, the services will need to find money inside their existing budgets. I understand that retiring certain older aircraft is critical to finding these funds to invest in what the Air Force seeks for the future, like F-35s, KC-46s, the Advanced Battle Management System, B-21s, and a new ground-based intercontinental missile. Can you please describe some of the risk that the Air Force will have to accept if it is not able to pursue those planned retirements of older aircraft?
Sure, Senator. I appreciate the question. I'd categorize the risk in really four categories on modernization, manpower, maintenance, and operational. On modernization, what it would do is really force us to continue to operate and not operate today's equipment and not be able to meet the requirements I expect from future combatant commanders. On the manpower, from a manpower standpoint, the airmen that we have today that are tied up in some of these our older platforms or legacy platforms are the same airmen I'm going to require to operate the newer platforms. So I have to be able to balance and train them to be ready to execute. On the maintenance, what I see is our sustainment costs continue to go up, and as those sustainment costs goes up, it actually then decreases our buying power to be able to use that money to purchase new equipment. And as we have that new equipment, it's a bit easier to maintain and sustain as we go forward. And then last is on operational. There's impacts to readiness based on aircraft availability, for example. I also think about our airmen and our joint teammates that we put at risk with capabilities that may not meet up against the threat. And the last is really the risk to our national security objectives when you pull out together what the Air Force provides with our joint teammates to make sure that we do the things that the nation's asked us to do.
Those are all worrisome risks, I would agree. I think we should be mindful as a committee, too, about those risks before we try to maintain some of these aircraft in the fleet if it's time for them to go, where we pursue future aircraft, occasionally for parochial reasons. Is it also fair, General Brown, to say that some of the money you hope to save by these retirements is going to be spent on systems or weapons that we can't discuss in this open forum?
That is correct. I'd be more than happy to come back in a classified form to share some of those details.
I know what they are. You don't have to come back to me. I want to make a point, though, here that I think every system the Air Force hopes to retire is a system that flies openly, that we know about, that is in our local communities, and that can cause some political friction with Congress. Some of these things we've talked about, we all know about and talk about openly, like the F-35 or the B-21, but some of them we can't. And that's hard for senators and congressmen to explain to our voters back home sometimes, especially if certain states or districts are going to lose an aircraft. I just think that we need to be mindful that there's a lot the Air Force needs to do in its classified setting, and that we may not always be able to explain that publicly, but the American people should keep that in mind, that you're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to keep this country safe as well. General Brown, the Air Force is heavily invested in both the B-21 and the long-range standoff weapon. Do you agree that both of these programs are required in their own right, but also as a supportive and complementary system to each other?
I do, very much so.
Okay, thank you. General Raymond, my time is almost up. I'd like to discuss with you at some point the circumstances with Lieutenant Colonel Matt Lohmeyer's relief out in the 11th Space Warning Squadron, if you'll follow my office, so we could have a conversation. And Secretary Roth, I think probably won't be appearing before the committee anymore anytime soon, at least as one of the longest serving officials in the Department of Defense. But I want to thank you for many decades of service to our country. And should you come back as an expert in the private sector at some point in the future, I don't want to hear what we always hear from Bob Gates when we bring him back, which is he's telling the biggest lie in Washington, it's a pleasure to be back in front of the committee. But thank you very much for many, many years of dedicated service at the Department of Defense.
Thank you, Senator, for your kind words.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Now